Well, I want to share something really quick because we're the the purpose now of this podcast is has shifted from the Gen Z perspective to getting Eric a great job. So
I'm not just talking to Eric. I'm talking to his 7 friends that
I
are
know,
ready for this
but
podcast, right?
I
So,
will say that I'm going to say this about the Gen Z from the lens of having three Gen Z children, but specifically we're talking about Eric here because he's here. This one is very much like you, Carl, in the sense that he's a people pleaser. And so the amount of like he smiles, he's like, yeah, that's true. The amount of effort that he will put in to be a superstar is unmatched. And then will dissipate when it's not recognized. Okay. And so specifically, it may just be him as an individual, but what I've noticed a lot with his generation, and this might be like, again, growing up on social media and getting validation from likes and comments and that sort of thing, that they need to get likes for their effort. So when he shows up for a job in the beginning, he will go 127%. Like if you're saying the average is 50, he's like, I'll do 112. And if he's given the likes and the validation for his effort, he will continue at that pace. But as soon as it's taken for granted, he's lost interest.
mhm.
And I think that's like very much in line with, again, the milestones that they've had, like where a lot of their worth has been connected to, do I get the likes? Do I get the views? Do I get the comments? And if I don't, then is it really worth my time? Like a YouTube page. If I'm doing YouTube videos and nobody's watching, at some point I'm going to stop doing it because what's the point? And I think that translates very much into the workplace as well. And it's not participation trophies, by the way. It's not participation trophies. It's an acknowledgement that what they're doing is mattering. And if it doesn't matter, then why am I doing it? What do you think about that, Eric?
Um, I feel like that's a majority of our generation, to be honest. I'm not going to sit here and argue that. Specific, specifically for me, I think, mom, no offense, I think that's what you do get wrong about me.
Oh, okay.
So I don't necessarily lose interest in what I'm doing. I lose patience. And I know you say that I have a little bit of patience, but bear with me on this last one because I know you were not the happiest about me leaving. Um, so I have worked with this company before when I lived in SoCal, and then I moved out of state. And when I came back into state, I went to the same company just at a different facility. For 6 months, we went through three different GMs, and each, GM, like every general manager that we had, yeah, regardless if it was hired or filling, all wanted me promoted. They were all saying, promote this kid. Like he's really good. He knows what he's doing. I've seen him the way that he works with people. And those GMs and the supervisor that I had directly actually worked with me and helped me. Like they were the ones answering, when I would ask, what am I doing wrong? They would say, this is exactly what you're doing wrong. It's not a deal breaker, but we'll work with you on it. We'll teach you how to do this. We'll teach you how to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. But for 6 months, I was promised this position from the GM, supervisors, and they were the ones that were like really fighting for it. So I think what pushed me over the edge, and I don't, seek validation from my managers necessarily. I seek the validation of knowing that I'm doing something right. But not in a sense where it's like where I'm glorified, where they're like, "Oh, Eric's the best worker." I don't care about that. What I care about is if I'm doing all this work, is it going to be enough to show you that I want this opportunity, and are you going to help me, be able to learn the things that I need to grow as a person, especially as a leader within the work, like within the workplace, and become a supervisor and things like that. But I still go 100 and 10%. She's not wrong about that. I will break my back even if I'm really mad and I don't like what's going on. I'll still do the work to the highest extent until I just finally had enough and I'm like, okay, six deuce, I'm done. Not doing this anymore. But
Yeah.
So maybe I articulated it wrong. Maybe not that he loses interest, but if he's not getting the accolades that he deserves, or he's not seeing like recognition for his effort, maybe he will keep doing it, but he's not happy about it.
If there's no growth, in my opinion, that's for me at least. If there's no growth within the company, then there's no reason for me to want to be there because I'm all
That's,
about growing.
that's the number four reason why people leave a job
Yeah, it
today.
was toxic.
All
There was no
ages,
growth
all ages.
opportunities. We had
Yeah,
really bad
yeah,
management. The scheduling was
mm,
terrible. The people were shitty.
yeah.
The hour drive that I had to get there, the gas mileage, the car mileage. I can keep
Mm.
going on and on. But
Yeah.
But but recognition and appreciation is not just a Gen Z thing. It's not just a millennial thing. It's something,
right.
it's been
Definitely not.
identified, since the 50s, right? And but but like you mentioned, Tiff, right? What is recognition and appreciation? Am I valued? Do you
Right.
see me as a valuable member of the team? Do my words matter? Do my actions matter? Do you see me as a human being, not just someone who's putting out, data or, lumping boxes or carrying the mail back and forth, right? Do you see me as somebody who actually has the opportunity to express myself and to be heard, right? And if I'm not there, you miss me. And if I am there, you value me. That's really what appreciation and recognition is all about. It's not the pats on the back,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
not that you're a rock star, right? Tiff, hey, you're a rock star. Yeah,
Don't
your
start
mom
your
hates that
crap
one,
right
right?
now.
Yeah, but it's not about that. It's about, hey, hey, how was your weekend? Hey, what's the next music festival you're going to? We're going to Outside Lands in 2 weeks. I'm excited. And but just those little things like that where people realize, oh shit, you actually care about, oh, my stats are good. I'm not asking about your stats. I'm asking about, how was your vacation, right? You know, um, how's school, whatever else it is, where people are actually interested in you. That's what makes me work 110%, right? And it creates that discretionary effort, that loyalty, right? And if you're a people pleaser like me, Eric, then that's what we look for. But you know what? Most people respond well to it, even if you're not looking for it. 98% of people say, if I get it and I didn't ask for it, it makes me feel appreciated and I work harder,
Mhm.
right? That's a hard stat, right? Now, of course, there are some things that have happened as a result of COVID, right? Technology, for sure, right? Things have become easier. Things you guys generally are more screen focused than we were, right? And so that, like you mentioned, communication skills, not just even your words, sometimes your body language, right? Body language matters to people, and for a lot of folks who are not, you know, um, who are used to being able to see people from their chest up, they don't always realize what it looks like in person when your feet are splayed or crossed or you're hunched over a little bit or all those things like that that older folks read into because that's what they were taught, right? And so there's so many nuances and intricacies to this, right? And but those are things that if you need if you ask questions, which you asked for my top five, I'll give you some top five in a minute, right? But ask questions of folks and get their perspective. Sometimes those are things that AI cannot answer for you. Those are things that Alexa is not going to tell you to do, right? And so that's the value that we all have learning from each other, right? Back when millennials were your age, I had people at the bank I worked at that were baby boomers. I don't know how to work this new system. It's stupid. I'm going to retire. I quit. I don't want to do this. And they connected with the millennials who showed them, with their millennial workers who showed them how to do and walk through that. And then the millennial workers worked with the baby boomer who'd been there 42 years and had, some perspective on clients and customers and how to connect with them in a way that maybe they weren't because they were focused on what's in front of them rather than the person, right? So linking those together, there's such a value in that. And people miss it because they think I have all the answers at my fingertips. What else do I need to know? So, but there's conversations that are had in hallways that really make a difference that people would not create a Zoom meeting for. That's an absolute truth, right? And so how do we make those things matter as well, right? And so yeah, I think we're at top five time, aren't we? Are we at top five time?
I think we are.
Okay,
We
I'm
are.
nodding
cool.
my head as
So
if I actually know that.
that's all right. You're good. Lead on, young man. Right. So, so the top five that we asked you to think about was what what are your top five things that you think um, older generations could do? And talking about the chip is one thing, but just the top five things. I mean, that they could understand about you that would really help connect generations.
Um, I think uh so I don't have them in a specific order, but I will say the
So
top two for me.
we never do either. We
Um,
just throw them out.
so I would say, at least in my opinion, the top one is the respect. I think a lot of it's gonna happen with every generation, regardless, but I think with us moving into technology and us having more access to more information at the touch of our finger, it's the respect of knowing that we have the opportunity to be able to explore explore our own self identity, but it's we want you guys to respect that about us, like I had mentioned earlier, gender identity, um not saying things that you shouldn't, things that would quote unquote cancel you, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
because cancel culture is huge, you can say the wrong thing at the wrong time and suddenly your career is over. But I think like it's the respect. Like if you, it has to go both ways. Obviously, like I'm pretty sure every generation's that way, but I think we're a little bit heavier on that. And that leads into my next one, which is how sensitive we actually are. And I will say I'm sensitive, but not to a point. Mom. Anyways, I'm sensitive, not to a point where I can't take something, but it's like it gets up to a degree where it gets too personal. Like you're now taking shots at the way that we live. Because we're the generation of social media. I was about to say Tiffany, but that would have felt so weird. Like my mom was saying earlier, um, we look for those likes. We look for those things that we work for, and we post them on social media. I've personally done it. I've seen people do it. Well, they'll post something, and within the first 10 minutes, if they don't get a certain amount of likes or if no one says anything about it, we instantly take it down and we say we'll try another day. So I think we want respect, but we're also sensitive to the respect that we receive. Um, Another one is our addiction to phones. I think that's something that the older gen, like you're always on that damn thing, like, oh, you're always on your computer, you're always playing games, you're always doing this, you're always on YouTube. We're iPad kids. Um, but I think like our addiction to phones is also like one of our greatest strengths and one of our greatest weaknesses. Obviously, like the newer generation has brain rot, right? Which TikTok did that to us. Like I'm sure you guys have listened to those Reddit stories where there's just Subway Surfers in the background and you're just listening to the story that's going along. That's how your brain stays engaged with it. But our addiction to our phones, like at least in my personal experience, I don't really use my phone much anymore. And I'm so it's terribly sorry, mom, because I'll start a conversation with you and reply like 8 days later and then be like, hey. um, but I think people think we're too addicted to our phones, but not everybody knows what you're doing. And this is something that I heard from my mom a long time ago while she was doing one of her trainings. At least she was talking about it. And I don't remember where I heard this um, specifically, but she said something about uh, not being judgmental when someone's on their laptop during one of her classes. Because I remember she was saying that one of the classes that she was teaching, she had someone that was on their laptop doing work. And the manager for that person said, hey, like, do you want me to tell them to get off the laptop? And she said, well, I'm not going to sit here and judge them because what if they had a deadline that they had to complete? That also has to do with us being on our phones. Like, what if we're doing something that's important to us that we can't just leave back? Like, especially like, people buying tickets to something. There's deadline. They sell out. I'm sure my mom would be all over Depeche Mode if they release something and, you know,
Absolutely.
so that's what I mean is like we're not necessarily addicted to our phones in an unhealthy way. Some of us use it as a I don't even know the way I would phrase it. We use it to our advantage. We take, you know, we I don't know how to phrase it. Oh, yeah.
Spoken like a true
Yeah,
addict. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's
I'm
valuable.
yeah.
But it is, it's a
No,
lifeline.
no,
It's how you
it's a
manage your life.
daily. Yeah, no, it's a way that we manage our lives. Yeah, where you're waiting in line at Ticketmaster, we used to stand outside of Tower Records. I used to security guard. We used to have things called record shops, Eric, which was pretty cool, where you could actually go in and buy actual records, CDs, and tapes and stuff. But and I used to security guard those. Like I remember, I security guarded a Bruce Springsteen drop, and I was there all night to make sure
That's
people weren't
all.
out in front of it. And, and then like at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, people started lining up for the 10 o'clock ticket sales, right? And so now you get in a queue at 9:45, right? But you can actually get other stuff done, while you're in your queue waiting for, the tickets to drop. But that wasn't, I mean, so, I hear you. It's a different vehicle. I mean, how many of us carry cash around anymore? My wife handed me $40. I'm like, where'd you get this? Where do we have cash? Right. And I forgot we did something yesterday where somebody gave us cash. I was like, oh, I totally forgot. I mean,
Drug
how
deal.
often do we use that?
Oh,
Well, but Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, whatever it is, right? Those bank transfers, right? So it's something that, is definitely a challenge for folks, but it's how we have learned to live our lives, and then we blame the people who we've set this system up for to access and use it, and we say there's something wrong with them, and that is lack of perspective. All right, so yeah, I hear you for sure.
all right. So we're at three.
Yeah, I'll make the last two quick. I'm a rambler. I like talking. So the
Finger
next
Where'd you get
blood.
one,
that from? Where'd you get that
Yeah.
from? You can buy
yeah,
that
I
on the
wonder. I'm just like her. I love hearing the sound of my own voice. I would say
Oh,
the
rude.
next one is motivation and drive. Like that coincides with each other. Our motivation and drive to do things. Like that, especially with work, it's not like a lack of not wanting to do something. It's like what it entails too, because we're really big about mental health too. I think that's what our generation is huge about too, is mental health. So it's like when we start to quit jobs or we leave jobs or we're calling out, it's not because we don't have the motivation or drive to go to work. It's because we're also taking into consideration, how is this going to affect me if I go in today knowing that I just had a really bad night and things like that. Sometimes we just need a day off. And then that also coincides with my last one, which is laziness. I think Miss Salcido over here really likes to call me lazy sometimes, but I think it really is like we want you guys to not mistake laziness with like how we're actually feeling. Because like, my mom and a couple other people have told me a lot, you're just lazy, you're lazy, you're lazy. But I'm like, I'm not lazy. I just don't want to do it, like that's some people consider that lazy, but it's like, put it in the workplace. If you're already doing three tasks and then your manager tells you to do another one, back in the day, I think it was the baby bloomers. Is that what they're called?
Boomers.
baby boomers.
Boomers.
Yeah,
There's
Boomers.
nothing blooming about them. Booming.
Boomers. Oh my God, whatever. But
blooming
the
onion. It's a
boomers, but
blooming onion. Yeah.
yeah. But the boomers, like I had a manager like this. His generation was, if I tell you to do something, you do it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like you're gonna do it. But my generation's like, I'm already doing all these things, and now you're telling me to do another thing. I'm good. And it's not because I'm lazy, but it's because I already got other shit to do. Like, and you're telling me to do more now. That's where our sassiness comes in. But I don't
Mhm.
think it's us being lazy. I think it's just we already have enough tasks to do as is. And when you're trying to add more and you have that mindset of, well, I told you to do it and I'm your boss, go do it. It's like, okay, well, I'm glad that you're my boss. You should understand why I can't do it. And now you're telling me to do it and I'm going to tell you no, but now you're going to call me lazy because I'm not going to be the go getter that you want me to be. And that's where the mindset of, I don't get paid enough to do this. And where minimum wage equals minimum effort given I'm not one of those people. I'll do whatever they tell me to do. I'm gonna put my back backwards for them. But I think like that's really what it is like we're called lazy, but we just know our limits and we're not gonna push ourselves outside of our limits for the sake of satisfying your needs. So that would be my top five, which is just laziness or being called lazy, motivation slash drive, addiction to phones, respect, and sensitivity.
That's
Well,
insightful,
thank
Eric.
you. Yeah.
Very insightful. And I have called him lazy to his
A
face, by
lot,
the
a
way.
lot. And a disappointment.
I've never called you a disappointment.
Oh, my
You're
bad.
disappointing
I
me right now.
sensitivity. Yeah. Okay, so I had a top five for you guys as well. So my top five for you guys would be um what are the top five things you guys think our generation should educate ourselves on, whether it be politics or life values, regardless of our social class?
Can I go first, Carl?
Of
Since
course. Of course.
okay. Um, I have five. And my top one is money. Money, like just fiscal responsibility. And I can't say I had the skill in my 20s either. Um, but I know that the economy and inflation and like quality of life is very, very different from when I grew up. Um, but I wish that your generation had a healthier relationship with money, healthier relationship. So less of the wants and more of the needs, right? Less of the wants, more of the needs. The other thing that I wish your generation had a bit more of is critical thinking. And not that you're not good thinkers, but critical thinking is really kind of like being able to discern like truth from mistruth. And this is not just your generation, this is like society as a whole. But just because you saw it on a YouTube video doesn't necessarily make it true. Like really being able to find reliable sources and be educated, not from the top Google search or what AI said, but really like independent critical thinking and being able to kind of challenge like the status quo or whatever is popular at the time. Another thing I wish that your generation had more of is more independent self-worth outside of like outside validation. So like really being able to understand that sometimes doing the right thing is the right thing to do, even if nobody's recognizing it. Um, and really kind of valuing yourself without the need of anybody telling you that you're doing a good job. I also would love to see more value in your word, like keeping your word and keeping your commitments. Um, I think there's a lot of like, let's tell people what they want to hear and then we'll do something else. Or let me tell you what's not going to disappoint you to your face, but I'm not going to follow through on that. And this is not an Eric thing. This is just like that whole generation is really like standing behind like what you say. Um, and then the last one is a bit more self-reliance. And what I mean by self-reliance is like there's a lot of blame and a lot of the blame by the way is very rooted in reality. The economy is definitely different. The job market is 100% different. Like there's a lot of truth in like the complaints from your generation, so I don't want to like minimize that the realities of your life. But I also will say, if that's what it is, like finding ways to navigate through that instead of just complaining about it. So, like a bit more of this is what it is, and here's how I'm going to get over it. Here's how I'm going to change it, versus just saying like the boomers and the Gen Xers ruined our life, which we kind of did. Like, I'll take some ownership of that. We kind of did. Um, and
Yes.
this is now the world that we live in. So how do we navigate through that, right? How do we navigate through it and find our own way or find our own paths in this really rugged terrain that is your life? So that's what I would say with all the love in my heart.
Okay, well, I will say this with um I mean I just met you, Eric, so I don't love you, but I definitely I think you're pretty cool. I like it. And I think we could connect. So with all the like in my heart, for sure. So,
Yeah, don't be
but no,
loving on
just
my kid. Listen, Diddy, relax, Diddy.
hey,
I
hey, no,
have
no,
no
no,
baby
no.
oil. You're out of luck.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for stopping by, everybody. I'm just kidding. All right. So top five things. I think the first thing is patience. Right. You mentioned sometimes lack of patience. I know that's not something that is just endemic to Gen Z, but just having the patience to recognize when you're feeling something that that feeling will not be as strong as it is in that moment if you give it 5 minutes, 5 seconds sometimes, right? And so just having that patience leads to people sticking with things a little more, right? And so rather than this sucks, I'm moving on, right? And I talk about this all the time. I mean, if you have, I don't know, yeah, that's right, you're a gamer, right? So we'll get to your top five games. But just thinking about if you're on a game with people and someone's being a jerk, right? Maybe you could just switch the game or kick them out of the room, whatever it is. The folks in my neighborhood, we all grew up together, we all hung out, and that was my social circle. And there was a couple assholes that that I grew up with. I loved to death, but they were assholes. But you could not just kick them out of the group. You could not just kick them out. If we were playing baseball and somebody was being a jerk, you had to learn how to deal with that and recognize what I'm feeling right now, have that conversation with them. There was no getting out of it, right? Which I think was could be traumatizing, especially if you're dealing with a bully, right? But at the same time, it's something that taught us to persevere. Not everyone's going to like you or feel you in the same way. So, how do we recognize that those people who, we just want to cancel or we just, maybe they're thinking differently from us politically, religiously, whatever, you know, we just X them out or unfriend them or block them, right? But is that something that you can do in real life as well as virtual? But because we're living in such a social media life, how is that something that translates to real life, right? And so dealing with that. The second thing is leaning into discomfort, right? Yeah, it sucks. You say you're sensitive. I'm hella sensitive. I'm, and I can say hella because our generation created the word hella because I'm from the Bay Area. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. So just recognizing that things are not always going to go your way and not just to bail, but to lean into it. Right. You know, when we teach trauma, we think, rather than what happened to that person, why is this person acting like that? What's wrong with them? Right? What's wrong with them? Why are they being a jerk? To recognize what's going on with them. But that's an intentional thing where we have to lean into that question because we may deal with somebody that we do not want to deal with and who's frustrating. And especially as a manager, you can't get somebody to come in on time. You have to have that conversation. I know too many managers. I know managers who are 50, 60 years old. I can't stand my worker. She won't do this. And everyone complains about her. Okay, well, you had a conversation with her yet? No, I'm trying to figure out how long, what to do. How long has this been happening? About 3 years. So you've let this go on for 3 years. So guess what? The standard that you've walked past is the standard that she thinks is okay. And now, when you have that conversation with her, you're going to say, well, you've been doing this for 3 years. Why didn't you bring it up 3 years ago? That's old stuff, right? And now she has a point, right? So just recognizing when you are experiencing something that's not comfortable to lean into it. What makes it uncomfortable? How can I articulate the fact of what I'm experiencing? Or how do I recognize that person and experience what I'm feeling with that person, right? And have that conversation, right? In person matters. Like I mentioned, right? I mean, we live in a remote world. It's not all your fault. I mean, with Skype, everything else, but then also the pandemic. Before the pandemic, a lot of people could not work from home. They weren't trusted to work from home, right? And now a lot of those organizations are completely remote because they recognize people can be just as productive, right? But So that's a bonus for a lot of folks. But being in person does make a difference when you need to have those specific conversations that pop up, right? Or like I said, after a staff meeting, when you everyone logs out, we go to do what we need to do rather than, and you might get a, Teams message from somebody else or whatever else. But after the staff meeting, when you're in the hallway or in the break room talking about that, that's a different conversation, right? And so just recognizing that in person does make a difference, right? If there's a difficult conversation, I'd rather not do it virtually. I'm in two bands, right? And both bands were in a weird, tricky spot where some emails have been sent, questions have been asked, and I tell them, hey, I can share on email, but those emails very often get misinterpreted. I'll see you guys at the next practice. We can talk about this, right? Because it's a different place. People can't just leave the room, right? You know, they're there with you. They can't just block you. They're there with you, and we have to deal with that, right? So, the in person where you really have important conversations, it makes a difference. It doesn't always have to be negative. Sometimes, saying the nicest, most supportive stuff doesn't translate when you're in a Zoom room, right? When you're connecting with that person, letting them know how much you value them and how important it is. It's not just the words as you say, but your body language and also your actions after that, right? So those things, they can really make a difference. I'm not saying people shouldn't work remote. Shoot, I love working remote. There's not a break room in this state that's as good as my living room with my 70-inch TV, right? So, I definitely value that. But also being in person for those difficult conversations or staff meetings, one-on-ones, that really does make a difference. And then the next one is know your sources, like your mom said, right? Just, I mean, I know I read a stat where 60% of your generation gets their news from YouTube, right? But what's also on YouTube? Conspiracy theories, right? And you know, I heard, I read one today. Maybe I'm way behind, but there's somebody out there saying that the wife of the president of France is actually um, not or was trans, and the president is actually their son, right? Which is so out there, right? But this person has created like 12 podcasts trying to prove evidence of it to the point where the president of France is now suing this person, because of it's not true. In fact, the brother that you said transitioned into the sister is still alive, and we have pictures of them together, right? So it's a lot of people will follow those wormholes. They take the red pill, and so it's definitely recognizing where you get your sources, right? Growing up, you used to read newspapers, RIP, pour some out for our dead homies, right? But to get something in the newspaper, you had to have three sources verify that information is true. And that is how we got information back when, even when I was your age. I mean, but I mean, when I was younger. But now that doesn't that doesn't have to be the test. People can just spout out opinions, right? And all of a sudden, people who hear those opinions all of a sudden believe it. And that's the 24-hour news cycle, that's the internet, that's everything else that tries to sensationalize everything. The greatest emotion we have is fear. So people play into our fear all the time, right? And also we want to believe what we believe. Confirmation bias is the worst bias because even if we're shown that it's not true, we still want to believe it, right? So just recognize where you're getting your information from, right? Don't just jump on, oh, I can't believe that person said that. All those quotes that are attributed, have you seen those memes on Insta or Facebook or whatever that have Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington on them, and then they have the statements behind them? They didn't say
Yeah.
most of those. They didn't say most of those. But people will just go, oh, well, it's Denzel, right? No, Denzel didn't say something, right? He just took a picture one time. Or those t-shirts that people hold up and have it, they just have them, an AI thing, right? So just recognize where that's coming from. Is it valid? And how do I trust my sources? I always say I trust science and I trust, real journalism that has specific evidence. And I stick with that regardless of, people want to call me old fashioned, whatever. And then the last one is to ask questions, right? I know what it's like to be young and to be intelligent. And this was something that really affected me at a young age where I thought I knew all my shit. I didn't need anybody else to tell me anything, right? Even though I didn't have a phone, I could find out information, right? And I learned from my sources of what's true or my own experience, right? I'm smart. I can put two and two together. But, just recognizing that, like I said, especially even now with AI, right? Asking, Siri a question or asking ChatGPT the best way to do things. There's nuances and specific fill in the gap information that you can't get from them, right? And that's where you get from other people. Hey, look, I'm looking to do this, right? Okay, well, I just looked it up. Carvana says this, or CarMax says this. I'm looking at cars right now, right? Or AutoNation says this, whatever. Okay, so this is what they say. Cool. Let me go talk to that person and find out if there's a little wiggle room. Can I get less? Or, wow, this is cheap. What's wrong with that? Rather than, ooh, this is the cheapest. I'm going to make that decision, right? Those are things where we ask questions rather than just, I take in information, I process it, and now I know, right? And so it's just like, you ever watch The Matrix? All right.
It's been a while.
Okay. Well, do you remember the Kung Fu thing with him and with Neo and Morpheus?
I
So,
believe so.
okay.
Very vague
So
memory.
don't worry, that's our generation's stuff. But they plug in information, so all of a sudden you get all this information, and they plugged in a program where it taught him kung fu, and within like 30 seconds he goes, I know kung fu, and then they put him into a platform with another guy who kicked his ass, right? So you can learn all the specifics and the techniques, and then when the rubber hits the road and you have to use those with people, it's completely different. And to be aware of that, to be recognizing that, and to say, this didn't work the way that I was told it was going to work. How did you do that? And that's called humility, right? But that's something that comes with age because we get humbled. The rest of your life, you're going to be humbled on a daily basis. There's going to be stuff that you do not know, or failures, or things that'll make you feel this small. And that's how life is because people live in it, right? If I could just read about the world, I'd be a much happier person. But no, I have to experience it with other people. That's why your mom and I have jobs because these are things that we teach people that seem like they're common sense. And you probably heard her training, like, well, don't people know this? No, they don't know this. That was the one of the
I've been to
biggest
a couple of her trainings.
man. That's one of the biggest things I recognized, especially even teaching leadership. You think that leaders who have been there for a long time should know this stuff, and then they don't. And it used to make me think less about people, but it actually just made me think about, okay, well, no one's told them, no one's given them that information, right? Nobody does this alone, right? Until I see a baby coming out clutching an MBA, we all learn from somebody else. So who do we recognize taught us that? And just like every other parent, I see your mom's about to say something, right? But just like every other parent, I told my dad said his greatest satisfaction was one day when I walked up to him after I had my daughter and I said, you know what, Pop, you were right. He's, oh shit, I was 28. That's the first time you've ever said that to me. Right? And so this isn't something that's just a Gen Z thing. This is something that's, just perspective and growth, right? But those are the five things that I would think, right? Just patience, stick to itiveness, leaning into the discomfort, right? Being in person matters. Know your sources and ask questions. Ask questions every day.
And I will say I'm gonna advocate for Gen Z real fast. I think sometimes they do ask questions and we get frustrated that they're asking because we make an assumption that they should know it.
Mhm.
And we have to always keep in mind that we have to celebrate their curiosity, not vilify their curiosity. And so
100%.
even us that have like all of this life experience, we have still a lot of things that we can learn from these new generations. That just as much as we want them to be open and adaptable to our ways, we've got to be willing to do the same. And I know I don't always succeed, but I definitely try to be curious. Like Eric taught me something like Eric is a very intuitive person. And I remember one day asking him because he would watch YouTube videos of people playing video games. And I'm like, what joy do you get out of watching other people play games? Like, I just don't get it. And he's like, well, don't you like to watch the Food Network? And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, do you get to eat the food that they cook? And I'm like, well, no. And he's like, but you still watch it, right? Because it's something that you enjoy. And I'm like, well, yeah. And he's like, same thing. And I was like, got it, right? That makes
Yeah,
perfect sense to me, right? I was coming in with a whole lot of judgment and
yeah.
I learned a valuable lesson. So I don't judge it anymore. Watch your video games of other people playing video games.
I
How
just
did that?
talked about that with my friends too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that other person pass that level? How did that person beat that boss? How did that
Right,
person get
right.
that extra life? Right? That's yeah.
It
God, and the
makes
only
perfect
reason I
sense
ever
to me
learned that.
now. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I was only able to learn because he was willing to share his perspective. And again, I didn't ask the question thinking I was going to get a good answer. It was really like, the hell is wrong with you? And I learned something in the process. And so that was a learning moment for me. So just as much as we like, oh, they have stuff to learn, we too have a lot to learn from his generation.
Real quick, what's your top five video games, Eric?
Oh
Ever,
God.
all time.
Uh, all time. Okay, I would say God of War 2018, all time favorite. Like I just beat that game 100%, played it again. I'm in the middle of playing it right now too. Not this very second, but I've restarted the game. Call of Duty, it's a classic. Halo is another one. I don't play the newer ones, but I do like the older ones. Halo Reach, all
Mhm.
time favorite. Um, I said what was it? God of War, Call of Duty, Halo, Valorant. I have a love-hate relationship with that game, but I still enjoy it. And I would say the Smash Bros. Series for Mario for Nintendo. That was my another one that I still play actively.
Well, Eric, what's the name of that game with the car with the soccer ball that you used to play all the
Rocket
time?
League.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
maybe that
yeah,
was a
yeah.
top five, but
I
he
hate that game. I can't stand that
listen,
game.
that kid would be in his room and it didn't matter what time of the day or night, you would just hear what crap. I'm like, oh my God, thinking that something's like the house is burning down. And he's like, oh, sorry. I'm very immersed in this universe here. Kill the
Well,
zombies.
my top five are the FIFA series and GoldenEye, but GoldenEye really playing the one-on-one, which was the precursor to Call of Duty, right?
GoldenEye
Where you
was on
could,
NES, right?
it was on N64,
N64. Okay,
right? Yeah. Um, Mortal Kombat, and
classic.
then another God, what's the it was similar to it.
Tekken, Street Fighter,
Well, no, Tekken's there. That's honorable mention. But there was another one with I think it's still out with Soul Blade,
Soul Blade.
and then Dance Dance Revolution Mario version, which is only on the GameCube. Find it.
I'll have to look that up.
Okay, since we're
I
doing
lost
top
100
five,
pounds doing that every night. So I'm just letting you know.
I'm gonna do mine since we're playing. I also have my top five. Super Mario Brothers, always, always. Miss Pac-Man. Um, I will also go with Just Dance. Just Dance, because there's a lot of good memories. Guitar Hero, Band Edition, and I'm also gonna go with Tomb Raider.
I'm a little
Sega
offended you didn't say
Genesis.
Candy Crush with how much you were playing it.
No, I don't know. Candy Crush is not to me a video game. Shut your mouth.
It's on
Well,
the
I mean, I guess
phone.
it is. It
It's on the
is. But
phone.
no,
It is in the
I was
gaming.
thinking more console games, right?
Okay,
Candy
that
Crush
makes
is not
sense.
a game; it's an addiction. Just so yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
but no,
that's
but
her
Guitar
nicotine.
Hero. Yeah, guitar. I don't even play Candy Crush anymore. Are you kidding? I'm on Royal Match now, baby. Royal Match.
That's
But
crazy.
I loved Guitar Hero, or was it Guitar Hero, Eric? Is that the one we used to play all the time with
Yeah,
the band? We
Eye of
took
the
that very
Tiger.
seriously as a family. Eric, anytime I hear Eric, Eye of the Tiger, that's all Eric, because he was like 8 years old with little sausage fingers walking around with the guitar like I don't even have to look at the TV anymore. Just getting it on
Easy
the
mode
hard
only
level,
though.
just getting it. It was so much fun. So
Do
much
you want
fun.
to know how old I am? I
I
Well,
played the
feel
first,
like I'd be offended if I were to ask that question. I
mm,
would offend you.
I played the first Madden on my first computer, and it was X's and O's on a blue screen going this fast. So the pass would go.
It was a 8-bit game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but it was X's and O's, and it was nothing like
It looked
so
terrible.
that's how old I am. So thank you very much. But yeah, but
hey, I played games with X's and O's too, but it was passing notes at school, being all in love. So that's a whole nother game I was playing. I lost that
what about
one for
what about
sure.
Slugbug? Slugbug, you ever play Slugbug? Yeah, yeah, that too.
Too young
All
No,
for
it
right.
that.
would if we played Slugbug in my family, we would have crashed the car. Slugbugs, when you see a Beetle, Eric, a Volkswagen Beetle, and you have to punch them, you say Slugbug, Slugbug red, Slugbug blue. Could you
Well, they
imagine if
There
we
was
would.
did
there
that
was
to our
that
car?
one, and then there was I forgot the name of the license plate one.
The
You
license
would
plate
just say
came. Yeah,
Oregon,
yeah.
Yeah.
Idaho.
No,
But yeah, Slugbug.
we would do alphabet based off of license plates and then also signs. So
Any
that's good.
reason to hit someone.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because we didn't have a DVD player in the back of the console or a tablet, so we had to figure out ways to be violent to each other. So
Neither did my children, and that's why they WWE wrestling in my house every single
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Three boys. It was
Oh, the WWE documentary, I just watched it on Netflix yesterday. That was awesome. It was real cool. So, anyways, all right. Well, that seems like that wraps up our conversation. Eric, anything else you want to add? Anything you want to plug or anything you want
No,
to
I
know?
would just like to say thank you for having me. It's honestly a surreal experience. I was quiet most of the time, but it honestly felt like I was just watching the podcast happen, and then you guys would be like, Eric, and I'd be like, oh shit, it's time for me to talk. But no, it was really cool. I liked listening to you guys talk. I like your guys' podcast. Yes, I know I'm glazing you guys right now with compliments, but it really is fun to listen to you guys talk. Um, and I'm excited to see how this episode turns out. And I'm excited for
great.
future episodes that you guys have. But other than that, I have nothing else to say.
Right on, man. I appreciate you being here and appreciate your mom for having you. So,
Quick
Yep.
coordination.
Yep. No, I appreciate you too, Eric. We appreciate your perspective. And I know, I'll just say, I know I'm hard on you, but I'm hard on you because I love you and I want to see you be successful. But I'm really excited about this new path that you're choosing. And I think you'll be really suited for it. And I wish you all of the success. Like, I'm talking like if I'm not going to talk to you in about 10 minutes. Um, I'm gonna text you some random picture of your dog. Uh, but no, I love you. I know I love you, Carl. I like you. You're all right. Since we're keeping it,
all good.
keeping it.
I love everybody. So, I love
There you
lamp.
go.
I love carpet. All right. Well, until we meet again, I'm Carl,
I'm Tiff. And that's baby Eric. And what do we do here,
and
Eric? What do we do? Keep it
we,
real.
we keep
Keep
it
it
real.
Keep it
real. We
real.
keep it real.
All right.
Yeah.